That animal deserves better than you. Men like you destroy them. The rookie officer hurled these words with venom, his voice echoing throughout the crowded shelter lobby. The elderly veteran remained motionless, his calloused fingers resting on the leash of an eerily composed German shepherd. They declared him unworthy of his companion. He offered no defense. Then he uttered a single command. The canine shifted position, and everyone in the room turned to stone. Tell us if you believe some orders resonate more powerfully than any shout ever could. Golden afternoon light cascaded through the county animal shelter's windows as Victor Ramirez pushed the heavy glass entrance, his battle-worn hand clutching the worn leather leash of a magnificent German shepherd. The animal moved with mesmerizing precision of an elite soldier, each paw placement deliberate, every head turn calculated with purpose. Sentinel, though no shelter staff knew his name yet, walked beside his handler with a discipline that whispered of battlefields far more perilous than this suburban government building. No decorated vest revealed his service history. No emblems showcased his heroism. Just the understated confidence of a warrior between missions. Victor approached the reception desk with the resignation of someone well acquainted with government paperwork. He needed to update Sentinel's medical documentation and confirm their ownership records. Standard bureaucracy that should have been completed in minutes. "How can I assist you today?" the receptionist asked, her eyes barely lifting from her monitor. "I need to update my dog's records," Victor replied softly. "Medical history and ownership confirmation." A young volunteer nearby noticed the pair and murmured to her co-worker just loud enough to reach Victor's ears. "That gentleman looks practically deceased. How could he possibly control a beast that size?" Another employee joined their hushed conversation. "Those breeds require constant exercise and stimulation. He can scarcely keep pace with himself." The facility supervisor, keen to display his authority before the growing audience, stepped forward with the arrogance of someone who'd never faced genuine accountability for his pronouncements. "Listen," he proclaimed loudly, ensuring his expert assessment reached every ear. "German shepherds demand rigorous training, strict routines, and physical stamina. This isn't about sentimentality or emotional connections. It's about the animal's well-being." Victor stood silently as strangers evaluated his competence over his head as though he were a child begging for a puppy. Sentinel remained perfectly immobile beside him, amber eyes vigilant yet composed, surveying the room with the intelligence of a being trained to identify potential dangers. Tensions escalated when Officer Jason Mercer from Animal Control inserted himself into the confrontation. Recently certified and eager to demonstrate his newfound power, he advanced with the smugness of someone who'd never been seriously challenged. "We're placing this animal under immediate protective assessment," Mercer announced, his declaration carrying throughout the lobby. "A dog with this level of specialized training exceeds standard civilian ownership without proper certification." Victor's answer came measured and subdued. "Where I served, we remained partners." Mercer's laughter cut like broken glass. "That's not legally enforceable, grandfather. You don't automatically possess a military resource just because you shared rations and scratched its belly in combat zones." Several bystanders began observing the escalating situation. Some exchanged knowing looks. Others barely concealed their amusement at witnessing the young officer putting the elderly man in his place. Mercer pointed directly at the leash in Victor's grasp. "Surrender the animal immediately. I'm transferring him to protective custody until we locate a suitable placement." Victor Ramirez didn't recoil, didn't protest, didn't elevate his voice. Instead, he spoke one word that transformed everything. The command emerged in German, crisp, decisive, unmistakable in its authority. "Verteidigen." The metamorphosis was instantaneous and complete. Sentinel rose from his seated position with the liquid grace of a weapon engineered for conflict. His muscles tensed with controlled strength as he rotated precisely 90 degrees, positioning himself squarely between Victor and Officer Mercer. The dog's stance was flawlessly executed, weight distributed perfectly, gaze unwavering, every muscle fiber focused on the potential threat before him. This wasn't aggression. This was pure disciplined protection. The gathering in the lobby collectively inhaled sharply. What moments before had been casual entertainment suddenly became deadly serious. Sentinel's presence dominated the space like the charged atmosphere before lightning strikes. Outwardly calm, yet radiating the unmistakable energy of a prime weapon awaiting instructions. Officer Mercer instinctively retreated, his hand reaching toward his communication device. "Control your animal. Get him back now." Victor remained perfectly still. His tone remained conversational, as if discussing the weather forecast. "He's performing exactly as his training dictates." The shelter manager, suddenly comprehending that the situation had escalated beyond his control, began retreating toward his private office. The volunteers who had been whispering earlier now pressed themselves against the walls, their casual judgments replaced with something resembling reverence. Sentinel never budged, never snarled, never displayed his teeth. He simply maintained his position, a living shield between his handler and potential threats, exuding the quiet confidence that comes only from surviving genuine combat. The rhythmic impact of military boots echoing down the corridor sliced through the tension. Captain Maya Lin of the military police, K-9 Division, entered the lobby with the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute command. Her uniform was impeccable, her bearing flawless, and her gaze immediately evaluated the situation with the efficiency of a career military officer. "Is there a problem concerning Master Sergeant Sentinel?" she inquired, her tone carrying the frigid authority that reminded civilians they were addressing a military representative. Officer Mercer blinked in bewilderment. You're familiar with this animal?" Captain Lin's smile could have sliced diamonds. "Everyone stationed at Camp Richardson recognizes this dog. Every handler in the 78th Military Police Battalion knows this dog." She approached Sentinel methodically, deliberately, her movements displaying the respect one professional offers another. Sentinel's posture relaxed slightly, still vigilant, still protective, but acknowledging Allied forces. "If memory serves," Lynn continued, kneeling beside Sentinel and running her palm along his shoulder, "this dog extracted 3 wounded servicemen from a demolished structure in Fallujah while under concentrated sniper fire, while his handler lay unconscious from explosion trauma." She rose gradually, her gaze never releasing Mercer's face. "The citation accompanying his Silver Star Medal, yes, K-9s can receive military honors, specifically references his autonomous decision-making capabilities under extreme battlefield conditions." The atmosphere had transcended mere silence. Even the ambient shelter sounds, kennel barking, ventilation systems, shuffling paperwork, seemed suspended out of reverence for the revelation unfolding. Captain Lin turned to address the shelter supervisor directly. "Should you or any staff member attempt to separate this dog from his handler again, this facility will face federal investigation before tomorrow's sunrise. Military working dogs and their handlers receive protection under federal statutes, and interference with that relationship constitutes obstruction of military operations." Her declaration lingered in the air like an irrevocable judgment. The manager, who minutes earlier had been prepared to lecture Victor about responsible pet ownership, now found himself incapable of meeting anyone's eyes. The volunteers who had been so quick to pass judgment now studied the floor with sudden fascination. Captain Lin turned back toward Victor, her demeanor transforming from military authority to genuine respect. "Sir, if you're willing to assist us, the 78th has been searching for Sentinel's final performance evaluations. When he received medical retirement, his documentation somehow became separated from his service record. We've been attempting to reconstruct his service history for battalion archives." Victor reached down and gently scratched behind Sentinel's ears, the gesture so instinctive and familiar it spoke of countless similar moments shared between them. "He returned home," Victor stated simply. "That's all that ever mattered to either of us." Officer Mercer, who had initiated this confrontation with such certainty, remained silent. He simply turned and exited the shelter, his authority dissipating like fog under sunlight. The lobby gradually resumed normal function, but the atmosphere had fundamentally transformed. What had been a space of casual judgment and bureaucratic power displays had become something approaching hallowed ground. Sentinel, responding to some imperceptible signal from Victor, resumed his seated position. The crisis concluded as abruptly as it had emerged. Lucia Hernandez, a volunteer organizing donation records in the corner, had documented the entire confrontation on her smartphone. She began recording when the young officer started issuing demands, thinking evidence might be necessary if the situation deteriorated. What she captured instead was 6 minutes of footage that would revolutionize public perception of military service dogs and their handlers. The video she uploaded that evening carried a straightforward yet powerful title. They attempted to seize his dog until the veteran issued one command. Within 8 hours, it had spread across every major social platform. By the following morning, it had garnered over 5 million views and dominated national trending topics. The comments section transformed into a virtual gathering place for veterans, active service members, and civilians discovering for the first time the profound bonds between handlers and their working companions. That dog would have sacrificed everything for him overseas and would still do so today. Never challenge warriors who've experienced combat or the companions they've trained. This exemplifies loyalty forged through shared danger. Military-focused channels amplified the story within hours. Veterans who had served alongside Sentinel in Iraq began sharing personal recollections in the comments. Stories emerged of midnight patrols where Sentinel had detected explosive devices before they claimed American lives. Of firefights where his presence determined whether soldiers returned home alive or in flag-draped coffins. "We all believe Sentinel was gone after Victor retired," wrote former specialist Alvarez. "That dog was legendary in the 78th. Seeing him still protecting his handler, that's everything." Public reaction proved swift and definitive. The county animal shelter weathered intense criticism that necessitated immediate policy revisions. The supervisor who questioned Victor's capabilities was removed from his position within 3 days. The volunteer who commented about Victor looking practically deceased requested reassignment to work with therapy animals for disabled veterans, claiming the incident had revealed her unconscious biases. County officials implemented new guidelines within a week. Retired military working dogs cannot be separated from their original handlers without military command authorization. Shelter personnel must complete mandatory training on veteran affairs and service animal recognition. Officer Mercer, whose attempted confiscation of Sentinel triggered the entire incident, tendered his resignation discreetly. His brief statement mentioned pursuing alternative public service opportunities. But insiders understood he'd been strongly encouraged to seek employment elsewhere. If you believe dedication doesn't expire with military service, share this story now. Captain Lynn, whose intervention diffused the situation, received an unexpected promotion. Her commanding officer specifically highlighted her exemplary management of civilian-military relations in her evaluation. She subsequently received assignment to develop enhanced training protocols for military police collaborating with civilian law enforcement agencies. The most enduring impact manifested as a bronze memorial installed in the shelter's main entrance 3 months later. The dedication ceremony attracted dozens of veterans, active military personnel, and shelter staff who had learned profound lessons about respect that day. The inscription read, "Honoring all four-legged warriors and the men and women who never ceased protecting them." State legislators recognized the significance of the incident. Within 6 months, comprehensive legislation passed protecting military working dog handlers' rights and establishing support networks for retired service animals. The Sentinel Protection Act became a template for similar legislation across multiple states. The most significant transformations, however, occurred on personal levels. Victor began receiving correspondence from young handlers still serving actively, seeking guidance about caring for their partners. He established a modest mentorship initiative meeting with new K-9 teams to share wisdom acquired through years partnering with Sentinel. The shelter that once questioned his fitness to care for Sentinel now hosted monthly workshops where Victor and other retired handlers taught proper canine care to new pet owners. Sessions invariably began with Victor sharing one fundamental truth. Dogs don't concern themselves with your age, your energy levels, or others' opinions about you. Dogs care only about your consistent presence. Sentinel seemed to comprehend his role in this evolution. During workshops, he demonstrated basic commands with instructor-like patience, allowing children to approach him, while Victor explained distinctions between working dogs and family pets. He maintained his tactical edge while embracing a new mission in education. The viral video accomplished something no legislation or policy revisions could achieve. It forced people to confront assumptions about aging, service, and the invisible connections binding those who've shared dangerous experiences. Victor Ramirez never requested compensation from the shelter, never engaged with journalists who called daily requesting interviews, never appeared on television programs promising to broadcast his and Sentinel's story to millions. Fame had never motivated his service and remained irrelevant in retirement. Yet monthly, without publicity or announcement, Victor and Sentinel returned to the same shelter that once attempted to separate them. They arrived not seeking apologies or recognition. They came to serve. Victor worked with new pet owners, teaching the patience and consistency that effective training demanded. Sentinel demonstrated fundamental commands for families adopting their first dogs, his composed demeanor helping anxious children understand that large breeds could be gentle protectors. They assisted with the shelter's challenging cases. Dogs surrendered for behavioral issues, animals that had abandoned hope in human kindness. Victor's calming presence and Sentinel's steady example often succeeded where professional trainers had failed. Observe their synchronized movements, Victor would instruct new handlers. The dog isn't merely following directions. The dog participates in the conversation. Their partnership continued 3 more years. Sentinel passed peacefully during sleep one Tuesday morning in March, resting on his favorite bed in the corner of Victor's living room, where morning sunlight always reached him first. Victor awoke to discover his partner of 8 years had simply chosen not to wake. The tranquil ending every soldier hopes for, but few receive. The memorial service reflected exactly what Sentinel would have wanted. No media coverage, no elaborate ceremony, just meaningful presence. 6 soldiers who served with Sentinel in Iraq journeyed to pay respects. 2 retired military working dogs attended with their handlers, gray-muzzled veterans who understood they were bidding farewell to one of their own. They laid Sentinel to rest in the veterans section of the county cemetery, his headstone elegant in its simplicity. Sentinel K-9 Sergeant, he answered every call. The leather leash that connected them through countless missions now hangs in the shelter's main corridor, positioned where every visitor must observe it. Below it, a brass plaque bears words Victor selected personally. One command, one bond, one lifetime shared completely. Victor continues volunteering at the shelter twice weekly. He works without Sentinel now, but visitors often notice him pausing occasionally as if listening for the familiar padding of loyal paws across the concrete floor. New handlers seek his guidance. Young soldiers preparing to deploy with their K-9 partners come to learn from someone who brought his dog home alive. Victor imparts his wisdom with the same quiet authority that once commanded respect in combat zones. Cherish them during your time together, he tells them. Train them as though survival depends on it, because it does. The command he issued that day in the shelter resonates still, not just within the building where it was spoken, but in the lives of everyone who understood that certain bonds transcend time, rank, and the limited perspective of those who've never served anything greater than themselves. Follow Valor Chronicles for more authentic stories that never required spotlight to illuminate their truth.